It's middays. We welcome to the program now Mayor Toby Barker of Hattiesburg. Mayor, good morning, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, glad to be with you, Gerard.
All right, so this situation with PERS is something we have certainly discussed on this program quite a bit. You and I have talked about it as well, I think last at the Mississippi Municipal League conference down there on the Gulf Coast. And I could detect that you had some concerns about the employer contribution rate increasing, and we're concerned about how to fund that. And this is, of course, something imposed on all public sector entities in the state which do participate in the public employees retirement system. Essentially, it means that as an employer, the city of Hattiesburg would have to bear this increase in expense that the board of PERS voted to implement. But it appears that just about a week ago, right, they decided not to increase the entire 5 percentage points on July 1, 2024, but rather to phase it in, starting with just a 2-point increase next year. Give us your overall thoughts about the situation and how you're going to deal with it.
Well, I think it's important for folks to understand that there were 2 votes taken. The board did choose to implement that 5% increase over a 3-year period, which we appreciate. That's what's been talked about since the end of last session. The first of those increases, right now employers pay 17.4%. Again, like you said, every public entity, whether it's a state agency, a school district, a county, or a city, we pay 17.4%. The employee pays 9.75%. And so July 1st of next year, that 17.4 will go to 19.4. Then the following July in 2025, that will go to 21.4, and then it'll go up another percent in July 1st of the next year. And so while I think it's important first to understand that though that's a 5% increase in terms of contribution rate, that constitutes a 28% increase in the retirement costs that we're having to pay.
Right.
And for us, it's about $1.5 million. Now, we get 3 years to implement that, and we certainly appreciate the PERS board sensitivity to what we're going through. But I think what the greater issue is, and I think that your listeners and residents need to know about, is the PERS board at that same meeting voted to lower the assumed rate of return from 7.55% to 7%. And look, we certainly appreciate the fact that we're going with a more conservative outlook in terms of investments. And that's what that vote basically said, is we're not going to make as much on our investments long term. The problem that creates for cities, and the executive director of the PERS board said this, that when you lower the assumed rate of return to 7%, you're going to also have to further increase the employer contribution to probably 27% in the next 5 years. And so that is the number that should really scare residents of cities and counties and school districts, because for us, that's $2.8 million. Now, Hattiesburg is a very thriving economy, and we have a lot of sales tax growth. And chances are we could absorb most of that, though I don't know if we can get there in 5 years. But for other towns and cities and school districts, you're going to likely see a fundamental shifting of what it takes to fund benefits for PERS to the local level. That means that you're probably going to have to raise city taxes, county taxes, school district taxes. And so residents could be getting it 3 times based on the decision the PERS board made. And we think it's important, and certainly we're budgeting for that first increase in our budget we're passing tonight. But we think it's important that we start having a real conversation with our legislators about what 27% looks like in terms of tax increases to local Mississippians.
Yeah, so we should also, Mayor, point out that alternatively we could raise the employee contribution rate as well. That is something that the legislature is authorized to do, but the PERS board is not. The way our system works in Mississippi, the PERS board handles the employer contribution rate, the legislature the employee rate.
Well, they could. Now, if you look into sort of the actuarial design of how PERS is set up right now, I mean, you could make the argument that employees pay most of what it takes to actually administer their plan now. But yes, you could. And we did that in 2010, 2011 when I was in the legislature. We made that hard vote to go up because PERS needed it. I think that the message that we're sending to cities and counties is that this needs to be a shared sacrifice thing. And we need to finally have a realization, I think, that what the legislature did in 1999 by creating a 3% every year cost of living increase was a mistake, and it is
Yep.
unsustainable. And so when we talk about shared sacrifice, we believe that, yes, employers, we're going to participate. We have to. The employees need to participate. And I think we can also have a conversation about current retirees. No one wants to get rid of the 13th check, but maybe we don't need 3% cost of living increase going forward, at least not for a period of time until we kind of recover from where we are fiscally. And so I think that all things need to be on the table. And I think that the prime opportunity to do that for our legislature is this next session.
Yeah, compounded, by the way, not 3% on the base benefits. So we should point that out as well, which really is fair to say exceeds the CPI. It's not tied to the CPI. It's not really tied to inflation per se. The way Social Security is, the increases there, the COLA adjustments are in fact triggered by the increases in the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI calculations. In Mississippi, it's just 3% no matter what. Even
That's
if
right.
we had deflation, it's still 3% compounded. And that does cause problems, no doubt. So in your role, Mayor, I think you just took on the role of being the president chairman of the Mississippi Municipal League. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. And what's the exact title? I apologize for not knowing that.
Head person to blame in charge. No, it's actually it's president.
Okay. I just want to make sure we get that right. So my question is, are you hearing from, in this role, are you hearing from leaders of other cities, municipalities?
Absolutely. And we're hoping that this is a good opportunity for us to collaborate with counties and their boards of supervisors, as well as school district and school board members. Every fall, the Mississippi Municipal League partners with our planning and development districts to do about 10 or 11 of these town hall meetings around the state. And we just wrapped up last week. I was everywhere from Jumpertown down to the Gulf Coast, meeting with cities of mayors who, once we start having these conversations and they start putting real dollars and cents to how much 27% could mean for them in the next 5 years, and what that means in terms of millage they would have to raise to get there. And then they make the connection, this is not just cities, this also applies to counties and school districts. I mean, the concerns are very much there. And I think we have lawmakers now and legislative leadership, whether it's Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann or whether it's incoming assumed Speaker Jason White, that realize that we've kicked this can down the road far enough. We have to make some decisions based on shared sacrifice. Again, everyone wants PERS to be there. Everyone wants the 13th check to be there. But we have to make a recognition at some point that maybe 3% compounded every year, regardless of what CPI is doing, is unsustainable. And so if we can have that conversation, if we can have that conversation with our PERS board members, I think that we can come to some kind of real solution that's sustainable beyond just 5 or 10 years.
The state, as you're well aware, has experienced significant surpluses over the last 3 years. Would you be in favor of the state perhaps allocating some of that surplus to municipalities to help offset some of these increased costs coming from the bump in the contribution rate?
Well, if you ask a mayor if he's for more state money coming to cities, the answer is going to be yes.
Yeah.
But as someone who has sat in the Appropriations Committee chair, I also realize there are a lot of things pulling on our lawmakers. Now, I do think that one way to do that for cities would be to raise the sales tax diversion, which is something that I think has needed to happen for some time. That would help us. It doesn't help counties, doesn't help school districts. I think that a couple of one-time infusions of cash will help, but I also know that our lawmakers have a lot of other people pulling on them. And so I would rather see us make the decisions on the systemic changes that need to be made to help us all get through this. I'm under no misconstrued notion that I'm going to be able to have the legislature cover, my PERS increase over the next 5 years. I hope that maybe it's only a three-year increase, and I hope that we've maybe have some help with our sales tax diversion. But I really want to see us what's our plan as a state to make some sustainable decisions in terms of what we can really afford in terms of cost of living increases compounded every year.
Yeah. Totally agree. And just something before we go here, I wanted to point out, if we got to this 27% rate that you anticipate on the employer side, and then you lap onto that the employer share of Social Security and Medicare, and then other benefits such as health insurance, you're looking at a burden rate of north of 40% of every payroll dollar. That's incredible. Just from my business background, we typically planned on 18 to 20%. You're talking about double that for a state or a public sector entity. And that's a scary proposition. Mayor, appreciate you coming on and providing your perspective on this, and we're going to stay on it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We're coming right back with more in the